Let's talk more about all this with CNN safety analyst David Susi. He's also a former FAA safety inspector. David, good to see you. So help everyone understand, what are the circumstances in which the FAA would restrict airspace?
When there's any danger to any movement within the commercial airspace, that's when the FAA puts these restrictions in place. Typically, it's military actions. So if you have jets that are scrambled, that would usually constitute a restricted airspace to make sure that there's no conflict with their operations.
Okay, and again, we don't know why yet. We're just looking at, the pattern in the last week, why the airspace would be restricted. So now help us understand, when we saw something very similar in terms of ground stops that took place when the fighter jet took down the suspected Chinese balloon over the coast of South Carolina. We know it was described as a balloon, an unidentified, object, and they were exploring it further. But I wonder now, when objects are 40,000, 50,000 feet, they are being treated differently. Help us understand that.
So if they're above 40,000 feet, typically you don't have commercial airplanes operating in that range. So that's going to come into what we call the risk assessment. And so that risk assessment has to be done on every object. Now, the Northern Air Defense is going to monitor these devices. Now, recently, they have a better way of tracking these types of devices. They're monitoring frequencies that these types of devices use to communicate and to navigate. So they're able to sense those. So that's why we're getting more and more of these just in the last few weeks. The other thing, there's another piece of this that has to be put into the puzzle, which is the Anomaly Research or the Anomaly Resolution Office, which was just put in place back in July. Before that time, there was just an identification of UFOs, of anomalies or unidentified objects. Now, under this office, they have added the mantra to this office that they can now defeat and mitigate any threats. So now you have the power of the full military to go out and defeat these objects, which you did not have before July. So we're going to see more and more of these types of operations.
Is it your concern at all that the operations are being executed this way with military jets? Do you feel like there is another way in which to take down a mysterious object like the ones that we have seen?
Well, as is the history of Congress, when they start a new office, they rarely fund it to the level that it needs to be funded. So currently, the military doesn't have the capacity or the devices necessary to capture these devices in air. So the only thing that they have is a $400,000 air-to-air missile that they use to shoot down these objects, regardless of what they are. Even if it's a weather balloon or whatever it might be, if it's transmitting, if it falls within that commercial airspace, then they have the authority and they have the means by which to take that thing down. But it's not a very efficient nor effective means to scramble jets and shoot air-to-air missiles at it. They need to get some money behind this program and really do it properly.
And of course, we've just reported that restriction on the airspace that has been lifted. What are the circumstances to give it an all clear and lift a restriction like that?
Well, two things could happen. One is the signals have defeated. The other is that the jets that were scrambled, and I'm presuming they were, that's the only reason I can think of why they restricted that airspace, but if they were scrambled and they went out and they were not able to identify anything, not only visually, but with any type of sensing equipment that they have, the radar and the infrared and anything else that they have available to them, if they sense nothing, then they're going to say that commercial space is all clear. And if the commercial space is all clear, then that military restriction will be lifted and they deemed it as being safe or a very low risk of any objects being in the sky in that airspace.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. David Susi, good to see you. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.